Welcome to the United We Scan podcast, the podcast by rural carriers for rural carriers. The views expressed in this podcast are of the presenters and the presenters only and do not represent the views, opinions, or strategies of the United States Postal Service or the National Rural Letter Carriers Association. We ask that you please consult your assigned union representative for guidance in your local area. Please like this podcast, share with your fellow rural carriers, and subscribe to be notified each time a new episode is uploaded. Please leave a comment or question for us below. Thank you. Now, here are the hosts of the United We Scan podcast.
Welcome back, everybody. Episode 85, Proactive versus Reactive. This may turn into a doozy. We'll see how it goes. How was your week, James?
Well, it was heavy this week for some odd reason. I could not make my evaluation at all. Lots of packages, lots of mail, box holders. We had our monthly shopper come in too. It was just a mess of things. And even at one point I had a bit of my DPS missing, and it was actually a godsend because I actually got back just before the truck was going to leave and made the truck for it. But twice I didn't make the truck at all. So it was a pretty bad week overall. And then during the week I got news that my train station that I volunteered at is selling everything off they can before the demolition team comes in to tear everything out of the building. So it's kind of a sad weekend for me. However, did go and see the new Twisters movie yesterday. I give it about 5.6 out of 10. Could have been better, but I won't give any spoilers for those that haven't seen it at all. So, but it was good for what it was for the entertainment value. I will give it that. And then today I took the day to get working on my speeches for National Convention and getting everything squared away and put together for that, getting finances finalized before I head out for National Convention. So other than that, pretty much just a heavier but normal week at the post office. How about you, Bill?
Oh, I had another exciting week of recuperating, except for Thursday, which was our standard, our annual President's and Secretary Treasurer's training day to file our LM4 reports. And it's amazing. We used to spend almost the whole day doing these reports at the number of participating counties at each training seminar. And now we get it done, by 12:30, 1 o'clock, go to have lunch, and then depart from our, eating location because everybody has it done. And I'm going to take a little credit for that because we explained to people how to do this and make it easy on themselves. Of course, one office had to show up with the president there, not the secretary treasurer, because they haven't started it yet. Even though your LM4 report, you ought to be making the entries into your books on July 1st. And it's just like, folks, if you don't put the effort into it, you're just going to make it more difficult to, for yourself at the end. Everybody there blew right through it. There's about 7 or 8 people that have been there for the last 4 or 5 years. They've taken my advice, using zip drives, brought laptops. And you get it done, easy peasy. In less than 3 minutes, you can get through it. Signing in, validating, saving pages, and then putting your signatures on there. And it's just it's a bit of work, but if you do it every month, it's not any work at all when it comes to actually filing the report because you have everything done already. Just go right off your checkbook for your entries. So I don't know. It was good seeing some people there, and a couple people have commented, says, "Oh my God, Bill, you have hair." I said, "Not for long. I'm going back to work." So, 2 months of growth, and my wife's, having a ball going around and grabbing a handful and yanking me, but that'll end tomorrow morning. How about yourself, Kristen? Are we on the baby clock? How was your week?
We are. My week was emotional to start off the week. As you all know from last weekend, I had lost my friend, and Monday evening was the visitation, and I picked up another friend because she lived in the same town where the church was for where the services were, and she needed a ride. So I picked her up, and we go, and we oh, the emotions, let me tell you. Saw a lot of people I haven't seen in many, 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 many years. Lots of hugs, lots of tears, and so we decided, and then it kind of started raining a little bit, and this gentleman, I don't know who he wasn't somebody that I had known from the past, but he come up to us and asked if somebody had a red Jeep with the cargo topper on there, and I was like, yeah. He goes, okay, I just wanted to let you know because it's raining out, and I noticed your window was down a little bit. I'm like, oh, okay, thank you. So then her and I decided we'll go out and have a smoke. So we went out to the car. It was raining. It had lightened up a little bit, sprinkling still. We go out to the car. I'm like, oh, we'll turn the air on, roll the windows up. And as soon as I switched the radio on, the Shine Down song came on of Dead Don't Die. And I nudged her and I said, look. And she looked at me. She's like, oh my. And then we just started laughing. And then it just broke out in rain hard. And I guess we're sitting here till the song's over with. And we're like, we hear you, Michelle. We see the note. We laughed and laughed and laughed and laughed. And as soon as the song got over, the rain lightened up lightly enough for us to make a dash back into the church. And so we hung out, and then it just downpoured even more. And so eventually when it finally let up, we left, and then as many people were leaving shortly after us, this big, huge rainbow came out across the street from the church, from the doors. And so it was just, it was good seeing people. It was hard to say goodbye to this dear friend. But so Wednesday with the funeral, I get in, and the same friend's like, have you heard that song since? I said, no, I haven't. She goes, me neither. So we do the services, and I did the procession, because it was probably about an 8-mile drive to the cemetery for graveside services. And we went right past my parents' house. My daughter was staying at my parents', my youngest, and she came out, and I asked her, I said, record the procession for me, because I knew it was a big one. Mom counted 55 cars, and did that. And then we went to luncheon, saw some more friends that I hadn't seen before in years, and went home and got stuff around, went back to my parents, got stuff around, and drove home. We got back into town. I stopped at the ice cream shop to grab an ice cream cone since my daughter was working. Sophia and I got back in the car to the last 3 blocks home, and what's that song that came on right after we got back in the car? The exact same song. The Shine Down song. Didn't hear it all the way home. The 4-hour drive home, didn't hear it. But as I'm at my last 3 blocks, and at that point, I just started laughing and crying at the same time. It was just one of those things that just, yeah. And so then I went back to work on Wednesday. Wednesday was actually pretty light. I only had 73 scans. Thursday I had 110. Friday I had 132. So it got heavier towards the end of the week. And I was off for my K-Day yesterday. And I took Monday through, well, I'm off this whole next week. Let's put it that way. Ruby's appointment, if everybody's just kind of been following along, knowing that he's been measuring small. Thursday he went from the last growth scan at 32 weeks. So a month ago, he was up to the 12th percentile, estimated at 5 pounds 7 ounces. Her normal doctor wasn't in there to get an induction date, so they scheduled her Monday with the doctor tomorrow at 11 a.m. So I told her to bring a hospital bag in case she doesn't let her go home. So I scheduled the whole week off. And well, needless to say, since about 3 p.m. this afternoon, she started having contractions and back pain, and since she's been home from about 5:30, they're going on about every half hour now. So I'm on baby watch tonight. So if we abruptly end this episode, we'll know that they're coming a lot sooner than every half hour. But yeah, so we'll find out if we don't end up going up tonight. Well, we've got an appointment tomorrow, and I'm pretty sure we'll end up staying. That's been my week in a nutshell.
Everybody's had a relatively good week except for James.
Yeah.
Well, for once, I've got to complain about a week, I guess I'd say. Usually it's a good week for me, usually, because it's calm and cool and collected. But, yeah, the very first thing that I want to talk about today is there was somebody that asked this question in uh, somewhere, and I saw it, and I wanted to put this out there because their management is telling them that they have to do, if they're under 400 letters, it has to be an average through the week or through the 52 weeks or whatever. But if you go in the 99-page guide, it's both under sector segment letters and casing DPS letters. It says the standard for casing DPS is only credited in two circumstances: when the route receives fewer than 400 pieces of DPS letters in a day, the quantity is automatically defaulted to this casing standard. The second application of the DPS letter casing standard is when the route receives more than one run of DPS in a day. In this case, the standard would be applied to the smaller run of DPS with the fewest pieces. Again, this is an automatic default in the system. This person filed a dispute because there were days they had under 400 pieces of DPS. So our system here in this 99-page guide tells us that it's supposed to be automatically applied, and they disputed it, and no action was taken.
That's your national steward system and national board leadership standing behind you. I mean,
Again,
how hard is that to figure out, James? How hard? How difficult is it for you to say 400 twice in the same program?
Yeah, they actually said it like 4 times in those two sections. Talk about
yep.
400 pieces or less than 400 pieces. So we'll say 399 and less, because it says less than 400. So anything less than 400, so 399 or less, you should be credited a casing standard for your DPS. And yet we have district representatives right now who are saying no action needed. We have managers that don't understand it's supposed to be automatically applied. This was supposed to be in the system. Carriers are reacting to the very stuff you put in this 99-page guide. They're disputing things that are put in this 99-page guide that was given out by our national board on the website. I actually just pulled the comprehensive guide up that was revised 3/22 of 24. This isn't the first iteration. This is the current iteration of it, and it still says it. I'm sure it'll disappear down the road, but
And no, Bridget, this is not anybody giving out false information. This is James quoting verbatim the Rex program.
A 99-page guide. You can actually look it up yourself, and anything that is said on this podcast or told to you by a district rep, your local rep, national board, anybody, you need to do your research on it. You need to make sure that everything is correct on that. This is your job, your responsibility that you are protecting to have this knowledge. So go ahead, pull up the 99-page guide. I will tell you it is on page number 67 in the comprehensive guide. And you find it on the national website underneath the homepage, the tab that says Rex Resources, and you'll find it there.
No, you can't make this shit up.
Nope. That's just the small little thing for today's episode. Just a small little thing for today's episode. The very next thing, I did do a breakdown of our president's article in the newsletter this week on both our podcast group and on Rural Mail Carriers United group. But I just wanted to do a couple of quotes out of this edition here. The very first quote, I want to go out and say, we are confident that the adjustment tool is accurate and is fairly calculating route adjustment data. We will continue to push the Postal Service to implement it on a large enough scale large enough to address this historic backlog. Speaking of the routes that are overburdened, they said 5,600 routes were identified in the first phase, but previously he said nearly 25% of all rural routes are in an overburden status. 25%. That's a quarter of the routes, 1/4. But he's confident the Postal Service is working on it and they're doing a proper job with it, with the same kind of level of training that they did on the REX program to their managers, the mapping program to their managers, and the rural route optimization program to their managers.
I did talk
Listen,
to a carrier. Well, go ahead, Bill.
Go ahead. I don't understand, James. You know, he's attacking our president on the grounds of, you know, maybe implausibility in regards to what he's actually doing for us, in regards to, you know, the bullshit he's feeding us. Yeah, you're pushing this forward. You still don't have transparency and clarity in the REX program, but you do have confidence in this adjustment program, which you don't have information in regards to how the algorithm is working. On top of them dumping the rural route optimization program right behind it, and it's causing people to make dangerous turns on their routes, that is causing them to drive across lawns to get to a mailbox, skipping across a river where there's no bridge. He has confidence in the post office. I'm sorry, you have to be some kind of Jim Jones convert to make a statement like that and just follow blindly the postal program as they force feed it down our throats. Grant.
I talked to a carrier this week that their route wasn't cut, but they did have some territory swap due to other routes being cut in the office. And from what I am finding out is when they're doing this, the volume factor isn't the volume factor for each box. They're going by the volume factor for the route in general, so across the board. So what happened to this carrier was they took off the lightest part of their route and took a piece of another route that happened to be the heaviest and put it in that place. And now this carrier, who was a 46K and now has had adjustments because of the other cuts going in the office, is no longer able to make their valuation daily by an hour to 3 hours a day. Because it's going by the volume factor for the route and not the volume factor by the box.
Which is what it was supposed to be. Yeah, I talked with a carrier that has a 46K also, hasn't been adjusted or anything changed like that, has begged for a route cut, is finally grieving it at my suggestion to grieve for them not cutting the route. But they are out there most times running a second trip on their route. They have so many packages that even if they had an LLV, they would be running a second trip on their route. And it's not a small route. It's a pretty high mileage route. It's like almost 100 miles. And they're finally grieving that. But that's another instance where the evaluated system has failed us. The REC system has failed us. The routes that are long but have a lower mail volume level but may have a higher package volume level are still getting hurt by this evaluated system. But here's another comment he made on the evaluated system. We find ourselves where we are today for several reasons. We did not have mail counts for several years while the new REC system was in the final stages of development. During that time, there were very few route adjustments. In far too many cases, the route evaluations were and are still not representative of the work being completed by many rural carriers since the standard hours for payment stopped at 5736 or K48. What about the ones that are under evaluated for what they have?
Yeah.
What about the ones that were under evaluated for all those years? You were on the national board the whole time, yet you didn't fight hard to make sure that these carriers were properly compensated, fair wages for fair work. And then they get the new evaluation and automatically are a 48, but still working well above 56 hours in 5 days before we even got the 56-hour rule down from above at arbitration. But now they're finally getting close to what they should have been getting before Rex was even implemented. And now they're getting cut back to a 43, which is actually probably, for a lot of them, is below where they were before Rex was implemented, because a lot of them were already 45Ks before.
Hey, James.
So they're, what?
I just want to correct you. The 56 hours is under the Fair Labor Standards Act.
I'm aware, but we weren't getting that until the arbitration ruling. We had to have an arbitration ruling come down and say that that's how it has to be, and that's why management started paying the 56-hour rule.
Basically, you're saying they weren't paying it because of the fact that they were just violating it, and they had to go press the matter to get people paid for it, even though it's already law.
Yes, which again proves management violates the law, management violates the contract, management doesn't care that the union doesn't like what they're doing unless we actually take it to the law, which arbitration is law. But so many carriers have been hurt over the past 3 years of Rex, over the past 5 years.
2 years of Rex and 3 years of not having anything.
Yeah,
it was
2018
was the last count.
Yes, it was.
So 6 years now. 6 years.
And,
so
now we went through 2 years of COVID, working our asses off under extreme conditions for, mentally, physically, for our health, physical health, propping up the post office, propping up the entire economy in the United States because people weren't allowed to go out and do anything. And our reward was Rex.
Yep.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure I had that clear.
And my last quote that you're probably going to go off on, Bill.
No, not me. Not me.
Oh, yes. This one, maybe Kristen might. I mean, this is going to bring back Orlando 2022 for you again. Our national convention is a time for your voices to be heard, to ask questions, make comments, and share the issues you are elected to raise from the convention floor. It is this exercise in participation and democracy that makes our union special and why it is an honor to serve as president of the NRLCA. Kristen, you start this one off first.
I don't know if I have anything nice to say at all, but...
Take a breath, compose yourself, and hopefully come off without the... Well, we're not going to confuse passion with anger.
No, I really don't have anything to say to it in general, honestly. I mean, I'm looking forward to National. It will be interesting, but I really honestly don't have any words for that little portion.
All right, Bill.
Oh, democracy, isn't that where everybody has a voice? Isn't that where you have freedom of speech? Is that where, you're allowed to help people without being penalized or decertified? Because some antiquated rules that you have that really aren't written anywhere, just kind of implied because of the fact that you might give out the wrong information, which, it was funny because when I saw a quote in the magazine for Don said, hey, it's tough being on call 7 days a week while maintaining a POV. I'm sitting there going, when did we go on call? Because I don't remember that being in the contract. Do you? The democracy, my ass. Isn't that where you are the spokesperson for the people, aka the craft, not just yourself and the rest of the board members? Isn't that where you represent everybody's ideas, their resolutions that are passed through state, the national constitutions in regards to what carriers want instead of the 20 or 30 that they feel benefits the majority of the craft? And like I said before, I mean, you could have, a resolution representing 6% of the craft, which we'll consider, but 3 resolutions that represent 80% of the craft, we're not going to, because it's 3 we'd have to argue, not just 1. This man infuriates me with his entitlement. With oh God, I can't say it. I can't say it. Maintain, Bill. Maintain. I just really, really am looking forward to Reno. I am so ecstatic about the fact that we get to go there and blow this convention up. Not literally, folks, but I mean in regards to starting turmoil on the floor because of this man's arrogance. He just has no clue, and he doesn't care, James. That's the worst part. He doesn't care. There isn't one aspect of his being where he has any consideration for union members. Oh, I represent the craft. You don't. You represent the people that support you. You represent the people that kind of control the voting blocks for the delegates. You go to the legislative seminars. You get to press the flesh with their House of Representatives and their senators. They're the people you represent, and you're depending on them to reelect you. But boy, I'm going to put the onus on everybody at that convention this year in regards to their integrity voting for an individual like this, or a narcissistic, arrogant, inconsiderate person. I had to change my mind on the last word, but person, because of the fact that he is not a leader, and he has demonstrated that time and time again. And I hope you all wake up at Reno this year, because this guy couldn't run an outhouse if you spotted him a turd and a pint of pee.
Yeah.
End of rant.
Well, you hit the nail on the head, and this is a long time coming. We are repeating history again, and we're being a reactive agency again. The history shows it. We go through these ebb and flows where we get people in that are actually proactive, stepping up, taking care of problems and issues, and heading them face on before they become a problem. And then slowly, over time, we wane into a reactive system where we only react when it's absolutely necessary, when it behooves those at the top to actually do something to solve the problem. And it's disheartening to a lot of people. I have a carrier in my office who, after rural route optimization, I have to call this out. My postmaster said, well, they paid big money in this program and we have to do this. Even though he's arguing that doing all those left turns and a U-turn on a 55 mile an hour road that's 3 lanes wide is not very safe. It's not impossible, but it's not very safe. They're pushing it through anyway. They already changed his BPS. They already changed the case labels and made him change the case labels. He's doing all that stuff. He's grieved it, but he doesn't trust the process because he doesn't believe the union will have his back in this. Even though I've been pushing for him to do it right, stay the course, stay strong. There's no trust in the system. And at this very point in juncture, when we are on the edge of losing everything, losing it all, because my next thing that I'm going to talk about is going to tell you exactly how we are going to lose it all. Our national board is sitting on their hands over this, telling us it won't affect our evaluations, telling us we'll be okay. It's just a test. It's just a pilot program. It's nothing important. It's not going to affect your evaluations. Well, guess what? I have received the training slideshow from management on the MDD activity editing timeline. So right now they began live testing all rural sites. And then on July 29th, Solver receives the edits from the live test period. The Solver program is going to calculate exactly how many hours they have saved by editing carrier scans. And then September 9th through the 20th, training of all managers for national deployment of Rex activity editing. And on September 21st, every single postmaster, supervisor, 204B, district manager, regional manager, and national manager will have the ability to edit every single entry you put into your scanner. Whether you put in a flat WSS, flat box holder, stamp stock sale, rural reach, the times you take to load your truck, they will be able to edit them all. They will be able to make it look like you didn't do it. Make it look like you didn't earn those credits. Make it look like you took 10 minutes to load your truck instead of 30 minutes that it normally takes. Now, I've calculated this out, and especially those people in the S&DCs that have to walk half a mile to their truck with their cart of packages and mail. It's going to take them 7 to 10 minutes to push that cart out to their truck safely. Then the time it takes for them to load their truck, which could be 10, 15, 20 minutes. And then another 10 minutes back into the office. That's 40 minutes. Well, on the city side, they want them to have 22-minute load times. What's the time frame you think they're going to edit your load time to when they get the opportunity?
22.
Or less.
The question is, how did we allow this? Well, our national board allowed this because there's that stipulation that the carrier has to sign off on the adjustment. But as we all know how management is, they'll forge that too. The only reason that I could see why anybody should be editing the rec scans is if, oops, I accidentally hit this, or the carrier comes to management to say, I need this taken off, because we all know if we forget to enter in a box holder or something that's under the office menu right now, we can go to the little hamburger menu up the top and pull the whole thing up and put it in later in the day. We all know we can do that. So, here's the thing. The only way I feel that this should be done is if the carrier comes to management saying, I accidentally hit something. I know the spacing's wider now between the selections, which is great, a little bit less error. But error can still happen. You know, you could be scrolling up to hit something and you accidentally hit something else. That's where I can see where editing may be needed, is if the carrier themselves goes to management and says, hey, I need this taken out. Outside of that, management should not be touching those, but we all know how management is. So now that's just one more thing that we have to be vigilant of as carriers is, are they editing our scans?
Let me point out the obvious here. James, when's the implementation of this supposed to be? September what?
September 21st, which is just
okay.
Which is right around the time that they're going to be calculating out our evaluations.
On the mini mail survey, after the mini mail survey. How convenient. You don't think they sat there and plotted this to go into effect at that specific time? You don't think that they've been sitting there drooling saying, damn, we're going to make a shitload of money off these bastards. They're not going to know what's going to hit them.
Exactly. And this is just another step to us going hourly, because we're going to be up in arms that we're underpaid for all the work we're doing, and we want to go hourly to get paid what we're actually working. And then we turn into city carriers. This is what management wants. This is what it is about being proactive versus reactive. You have to anticipate what your enemy, and management is the enemy here, because they're going to do anything and everything to milk every penny they can out of the carriers. They are spending dollars to save dimes off the carriers' backs. In the meantime, they're hiring more and more managers, spending more and more money on management, and abusing carriers left and right. It's not new.
And let me take you back to the FSS machines. If anybody has any question of the post office doing anything to save a dime, the FSS machines are one of the greatest examples of ripping off the rural craft because of the fact that in my area, the Pennsylvania 2 district, FSS machine installed at the cost of $100 million, whatever, paid for itself in 2 years. $100 million between the rural carriers and the city carriers, the hours they were cutting off for the clerks, machine paid for itself in 2 years. Now, if you don't think that they're not, following the same paradigm in regards to taking more money off of you, look at Rex, look at the rural route optimization program, look at the new scanner, adjustments where they can go in and manipulate the scans now. They're testing out, and they're now going to turn around and implement in September. This is all designed to kind of turn us into city carriers, like James said, because the more they manipulate this, the more that the carrier craft itself, the rural craft, is going to sit there and say, oh, well, the hell with this evaluation shit, just pay us hourly. And when that happens, they win.
Yep.
They will have won.
And there are several people on that national board right now that were involved in this entire system, from the arbitration ruling that created it all the way to its implementation now. They've been on the national board.
And we're not going to mention names like Don Madsen, Jeanette Dwyer. He's been involved more or less. Patrick Pitts.
Yep.
They are the ones who've been involved.
Ronnie Stutz.
Right. Well, Ronnie's not on the board right now, so
Not on the board right now, but he was involved.
Yes.
We have to include the people who were involved in this.
Well, then you go all the way back to Joey Johnson and David Heather, and all the way back that far. I mean, damn. You probably go back all the way back to Gus, but I don't think it would go that far back, since Jeanette actually started this whole discussion with the Rex program in 2012.
But the issue of being proactive versus reactive goes back even into the 80s. From the 80s on, after we had the Wildcat strike in the 70s, and we got every contract benefit we could get because of how they were treating us, history repeating itself, it was calm for a little bit, but then management went right back to their old tactics. And we have evidence over that. We have evidence all the way back. We can prove that management has not changed their tactics. I'm reminded of a quote that our good president said at one of our conferences. Change is going to happen whether you like it or not. Well, I wonder when management's going to get that memo. That change is going to happen and carriers are going to be protected. Carriers are going to be defended. And carriers are not going to stand for management doing this to us anymore. And then we're going to use any and all legal means to accomplish that. Now, I know that the city carriers right now are in their national convention this week. And I wish them the best of luck, because they're dealing with the exact same problems we are with their national board, but they currently aren't in an election phase for their national officers.
Oh, they got 2 more years.
The only thing they could do is possibly do a removal during national convention. That's about it. But then the order of succession takes over. So it's not an election. They still have 2 years for that. So we're lucky. We have the yearly elections in our national officers. Now, granted, that doesn't allow our entire body to vote for who runs the union yet. But it's one of those things that we are lucky that if we have a problem with our national leadership, we could vote them out. Every year.
The only exception to that is the executive committee men, because that is a 4-year term.
Yes, but they get voted every year too. It just rotates through which position gets voted. Somebody asked,
Now,
how do
James,
we get the retirees and loyalists to understand this?
I cannot give you my honest opinion on how to handle that, but in being politically correct, I would have to say that you have to sit down and talk to them and explain to them that they do not understand the conditions which we work under versus where they had stronger union representation in offices, in districts than we do now. And we continue to have problems with stewards, ADRs, and DRs throughout this country in regards to their response to the time. Like you said, no action required on 400 letters or less. How can that not be? It's right there in the Rex resources, and yet you don't pursue that. I've got to make this remark, James, about you saying proactive versus reactive, okay? Because this whole situation that we're being turned into. I mean, like butter, we're being churned, just turned over and folded over and folded over. This is probably the post office's greatest effort to get us to go hourly so that we can be handled just like city carriers and pivot on routes and therefore solve the shortage of subs. I think this is their end game in regards to the hiring and retentions of substitute carriers by having us go hourly.
And that's why they keep extending that MOU, which is set to expire on the 23rd of August. We'll see if they renew it. I wouldn't doubt it, honestly, if it came out on the 21st or 22nd that it was being renewed. And yeah.
And then and then when the board is replaced by other candidates, that MOU will still be enforceable because it was negotiated in good faith with the current elected representatives of the craft.
Oh, James, it was put into effect because many people need that extra money to pay their bills and make their ends meet, or they want that extra money so they can save up for that vacation or buy a new car. James, don't you understand that? The president told you this. It's not that they're on table two and can't afford groceries. It's because they want the extra money.
I will admit, I have taken advantage of that MOU myself personally, for helping my postmaster out. I love my postmaster. My postmaster is one of those unicorns, so I will help my postmaster out if I can in situations like that. It was an emergency, and I didn't have to, but I was also helping out the RCAs that day that were scrambling to cover that route. So I took a bit of it to help them out because that's what we do. We help each other out.
I've taken advantage of it since I went regular to help out the newer RCAs because they were, the couple that we had in the office were brand new and, their first few times out on that route. Yeah, I have no problems going out to help them for the fact that I'm going to help them because we all know what it was like on our first few times out, especially our first day out by ourselves with the whole route. It's a shit show. We know that. And so, not even as a new regular, I didn't have to be a brand new regular. I could have just done it as to get, I get it. We've all been there. Let's go out and do this. I give them a call. Hey, where are you at? I'm on my way. Even to this day, I don't have a problem doing that when needed. But it's...
Well, and it's funny because I was in the same boat. I would help out initially when the MOU first came out, okay? And if someone was having a problem or if there was, a couple vacant routes and I knew it, I would volunteer to help because of the fact that I didn't want everything being burdened onto the subs who are already working a route and a half and coming back to the office and saying, oh, we have more. But then I started to notice that the supervisor kept coming to me before going to junior people and asking or anybody else because they knew that I would help volunteer. And finally, I said to myself one day, I said, hold it. Why am I the only one being singled out to assist? Why aren't you asking anybody else? And they're like, well, we get the same answer. Well, doesn't matter. You should be asking everybody, not just the people who have helped in the past. Therefore, the abuse gets heaped onto the people who have helped in the past because it's assumed that you're going to help every time. No, just because you fall in the cesspool doesn't mean I'm going to help you out every time.
Well, Bill, haven't you heard the adage? Hard work gets rewarded with more work.
Yes, it does.
I have a T-shirt with that on there.
We had one commenter say, I have to be on the RDWL to make my ordinary bills as a single income table 1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is, we are sitting at a precipice in this country right now and in our line of, in our craft, because Amtrak, a government agency, just like we are, just got a 36% pay raise from their union in negotiations. Our supervisors are going to get up to a 21% pay raise.
But James, Amtrak doesn't actually make enough money to cover their expenses either, do they?
No, they
Okay,
get some government subsidies too.
Yeah.
On top of that, most of Amtrak's running is on private company rail. They don't even have to maintain the rail. There are sections that they own, the Northeast Corridor, for instance, the Michigan line, so on. But most of their travels are actually on the freight railroads line, so they don't have those maintenance costs of those places. And then the train stations, a lot of them are actually maintained by the cities that they stop at versus Amtrak themselves. They don't have as much overhead as the post office does, but they still run in the negative, just like the post office.
Mm-hmm.
But they still are going to pay their employees a living wage, especially in this economy. But yet the city carriers haven't negotiated a contract. They've got an arbitrator picked back a long time ago, but they still haven't scheduled an arbitration. Where are we in our negotiations? We got the comment from Maston that they've negotiated most of the hard stuff and they're just working out the finer details. I'd love to know what those are. But with closed door negotiations, that doesn't help things either. We're in a day and age of information. We're in the information age where everybody gets information as quickly as possible. And yet we have negotiations that where we could step up and protest to get this to happen. We could contact our legislators. We could get the public involved if we actually knew what we were negotiating. And it's one of those things that...
Hold on. You said most of the hard stuff is settled? So we're going to get rid of we're going to get rid of table 2 and table 4.
No.
And we're going to have a step program for RCAs based on longevity. And we're going to get time and a half on Sundays and holidays for the RCAs and ARCs. So those things are resolved?
Well, when I made those statements to Maston at Mid-States, he said, that's not going to happen.
I thought you said they had this hard stuff settled.
Doesn't mean it's settled in our favor.
That's what he put in the magazine. I said we'd get a $10 an hour increase. We'd get rid of table 2 and 4. We get better benefits across the board, better insurance rates, and things like that. And he said, that's not going to happen. And Michael Gann was sitting right next to him when he said that. And after he said that, Michael Gann tapped him on the leg and he said, oh, well, I got to go. It was nice chatting with you.
Oh, Lord.
I pay attention to a lot of things, especially the actions of others, especially the way they talk about things. And that's the attitude that we have at our national board right now. That's not going to happen. It's not to the benefit of the Postal Service.
All I can say is if we don't change this board in Reno this year, we go down the path that we've been going down the last 15 years at least, and the same shit just gets regurgitated. There's going to be a lot of people out there saying, Angry Bill was right.
Yeah.
But guess what? It'll be too late then, folks, because you'll be stuck for another year with this weak leadership that has no concern whatsoever for your conditions, your situations, and the toxic work environment we're exposed to.
You have to remember, these national board members are only reactive. 3 months for them to file a step 4 grievance on non-payment of carriers. It took us bringing out the fact they were adding the activity editing to management for our board to put out any information on it and say it's not going to be a problem. Well, we've just proven it's going to be a problem. We know it's going to be a problem. We know the names of several managers, supervisors, postmasters that will abuse the system already. But it's not like we can go to management and say, hey, you can implement this in some of the offices where we actually trust the management, but you can't implement it in these offices because those managers will falsify it left and right.
And Rex has proven that management is incompetent, incapable of actually understanding the system, let alone implementing it. So this is just going to be another situation where the abuse is going to be off the charts. Whatever doesn't fit their metrics in regards to their standards, guess what? They'll adjust them. They will establish thresholds and say, you have to meet these. And if they're not met, go in there and adjust the scans.
You said the wrong word. It's benchmarks.
Well, benchmark, benchmarking is the term, but it's the same metrics. I mean, it is. They are setting a level of acceptance in regards to their perception of what we're entitled to, not what we're doing, what we're entitled to.
They won't be happy until everyone is an H route in our comments. Yeah, everybody's a 6-hour H route, and they have to take a second 6-hour H route to fulfill the day because they're so short-handed because everybody will have quit by then. All the people that can walk away will walk away.
Well, frequency. I'm not waiting for the first accident. I'm waiting for the first accident after the RRO in regards to somebody making a dangerous U-turn, left turn, backing up. That will set the craft on fire.
Oh, trust me, they'll just blame the carrier for it. And by the way, I already talked with a carrier that actually had management clock them out. They had gone back to the office and were about to switch to PM casing to do their second trip and just happened to check the Rex activity scanning and it said they had already clocked out. And the management didn't have the ability to edit their scans. So what that tells me is management scanned in under their barcode and clocked them out.
Yeah, I'd have been in trouble because I'd have walked right over to whoever's there and asked them what the fudge was going on.
Oh, the manager already left at 3 p.m. and the person's in an RMPO.
Oh my God. Oh, you're shitting me.
Not at all.
Oh, the audacity. Oh, was his manager's last name Matson?
No, I will not give away the specific details, but that person does listen to the podcast and will recognize the call out on this.
I was being sarcastic. I know. I'm so much unlike me. Okay, I mean. Oh God.
Any accident, we've proven that. Anytime a carrier is involved in something, they won't blame the manager for making the carrier do that. They'll blame the carrier for doing it. Everything is the carrier's fault, even if management made them do it. Even if management threatened to fire them if they didn't. It's still the carrier's fault under management's eyes. Ask the postal inspectors during the Memphis series who was at fault for the situation. I mean, you can go back and listen to Corey's podcast. He has the actual recording of what the postal inspector said about who's at fault for it. You'll hear the disdain in his voice for carriers.
I'm just, I'm anticipating Reno. I'm hopeful and still a little bit scared. God, I hope people are going to come to their senses because of the fact that this just can't keep going on, ladies and gentlemen. And, we're not going to have a contract before the convention. They're still, negotiating with the NALC. We're not going to get ours done.
They're
And
actually,
hopefully,
if I'm not mistaken, I
hopefully,
believe they're waiting on the APWU first because the APWU is the one that's actually losing a lot of memberships because of the SNDCs.
mhm.
So they're probably going to try and base everything off the APWU because I believe management is thinking that because they're struggling to bring in membership, that the APWU is most likely to be the first one to roll over and give a crappy contract. But considering the statement that their president put out, which was probably the best statement a president has put out in a while for a postal union about their negotiations, I don't think they're going down without a fight.
And they
Well,
just
let's hope
started. And they just started their negotiations. So
Yeah.
Well, I hope they're better than what the current representation is in Westchester for the APWU, because that's so lame there that they don't even bother. I mean, they really don't even bother when you're working at 2:30 in the morning. You're coming in at 2:30 in the morning, and at 8 o'clock they're sending you out for 2 hours so you can come back for 2 more hours later on. It's like, are you kidding? And I understand they have these weird hour contracts with them like that, but God, that doesn't make any sense. It really doesn't. You can't schedule better than that. But in my office, the APWU has no backbone whatsoever. Except they step over them like dogs squat in the middle of the sidewalk. So I hope their leadership is better. What I've seen in my office.
No, it's the same in any union out there with this stuff because you have some that are proactive, want to take care of their membership, and there are some that either have gotten into it under the good old boy club or have burned out too. Some of them have burned out because they've been fighting so hard for so long and not gotten the support they need from above them that they get burned out by it too.
Yeah.
It's crazy to think about how far we've come as a society, yet how held back we are as a craft by our current leadership. We could solve this. We could get proactive to what's going on, but we have people who are begging for help. I brought up Orlando 2022, the person on the floor crying, begging for help and not getting it.
had one
2023.
Grapevine in 2019 as well.
They've been begging for help for years from our national board and not gotten it. What's it going to take?
No, James, you're wrong. DR and the NRO went to Hawaii to help out, the carriers there.
But
It wasn't responding to, a cry for help while throwing in a very nice vacation.
But you have people here who have lost so much because of Rex, because of managerial harassment, because of map editing that management does without the carrier. You have people who aren't making enough money to make ends meet anymore, especially those on table 2 and table 4. Hell, even those on 1 and 3 are not making ends meet anymore. It's time for our national board to step up or ship out. But at this point, since they haven't stepped up, they might as well ship out because these carriers need a proactive national leadership, not a reactive national board.
All right, James, you got anything else for tonight?
That's pretty much it.
Got anything to add, Bill?
Yeah, but I can't make those comments while you're still recording. So,
All right, I'm gonna say we're gonna wind this down for tonight, so I can get her edited and posted, and then go take a nap. I went to go check on my daughter.
She's still doing good?
Yeah, it's lightened up a little bit, but she can't keep anything.
Okay. Well, all right. Final thoughts for me. We definitely need proactive people now. We need people who are thinking, What will management do next to screw over the craft? We have offices that are still turning off the AC and the fans in the morning and in the afternoon when carriers come back. I have it from multiple people in multiple offices across this country that management is still doing this stuff. We have carriers who are overworked, underpaid, and underappreciated by management. We have POOMs who think they can direct management to do whatever to these carriers with impunity. It's time to be proactive and put people in the positions that are going to think ahead of the bell curve, are going to think ahead of the next management choices, are going to be stepping up and saying, hey, this is coming down the pipeline. We need to be prepared, instead of posting about it 2 days after a podcast puts it out. The time for carriers to step up is now, because it's time for us all to stand up together and show management we're all in this together. Bill?
Well, all I can say is that our delegate selection is process itself has been completed. So everybody who's going to represent you at the national convention is already on the list, and you need to get a hold of them, and you need to convey your concerns. You need to convey the situation in your individual offices. There's no way that I can believe that there are more than, maybe 5% of the offices in this country that have unicorns, because there's just too much on social media in regards to situations that break your heart. And I know people in my office that get SNAP and WIC so that they can feed their families. That should never happen. And when they turn around and say, well, this was forced onto us by the arbitrator. No, let it get forced onto you by the arbitrator, because you let it get to arbitration. You didn't have a prepared battle front in regards to how to approach the situation and deny these 2 extra tables in our pay scale. You just folded in there with the city carriers, and all you did was screw the craft. It's time to have some real leadership. It's time to have somebody who's going to stand up there and not just hold a sign on a picket line saying enough is enough, putting their face out there and saying, not only is enough not enough, but we're coming after you. And that means we have to start going after management. If they're supposed to be training people with Rex and they fail to do it, then we file against them. They fail to get the people, a voice in their route adjustments. They turn around and they cut them severely while favoring people that they are friendly with in the office, aka Westchester, Pennsylvania. Then you need to file. If they turn around and they do the RROs and put you in a dangerous position for turning around just to cut a couple miles off your route, you need to file. If somebody is representing you from the union and they don't pursue the articles of Rex, the Constitution, our contract, the ELM, the PO 603, the M38, you need to go above them. We need, in my particular case, we need the NROs to look over the shoulders of the DRs for your district to find out why grievances are sitting at step 2 for over 2 years. What are you supposed to be doing if not overseeing the DRs? I'm kind of confused. I mean, you're getting paid $140,000 a year, then let's earn it, folks, okay? Your national board, you're making over $180,000 a year, earn it. But right now, all you're doing is maintaining status quo so that you can get to your padded retirement. Enough of the bullshit, okay? Like I said, the delegates are selected. Put your lips to their ears, get involved, stand up, have a voice, so that they can be influenced to make a better decision at the convention and replace this leadership with people who are on the front lines and willing to put the time and effort in there to represent the entire union. Remember, the national board works for you. It shouldn't be the disdain the almost intolerance for our crying and our gripes. Well, guess what? They're legitimate. And you're paid to address them. So either shit or get off the pot, because we're coming after you in Reno. Everybody have a good week. The heat's still with us. Hydrate, be safe, and make sure you get home to your loved ones, because you're the most important delivery of the day. Kristen?
Thank you, guys. Yes, everything that they have both said is definitely, the board is elected by the delegates. They are elected to work for the craft for every single member. And remember that, and definitely, reach out to your delegates if you know who they are. Let them know how you're feeling, and hopefully they're delegates that are willing to listen to your concerns and take those into consideration when they are voting at national. Reno is just a few weeks upon us. It's coming up fast, guys. And I am looking forward to it. However it may go, it will definitely be an interesting one. Let's put it that way. And, heat is still with us. Stay hydrated. Take care. I will not be posting on Facebook when the grandbaby arrives, per my daughter's request. So if you're in Discord, you may update and put that out there. So everybody take care. Stay safe this week. Remember, we have to come together in order to be the change. That's just how it has to be. And there's just been way too much division over the years, and it's getting worse. I mean, I see it all the time, but I also see a lot of people coming together. A lot of people stepping up into positions they never thought that they would step up into because they are just tired of it. And we applaud those, each and every one of you that are stepping up, whether it's to be a local steward or higher up in the NSS or your state boards, your local boards, or just stepping up in your office to fight for yourselves and your fellow carriers as a carrier. We commend all of you that do that. And, I appreciate everybody that's reached out to us. I do believe I have gotten back in one form or another to everybody that's reached out to me in the last couple of weeks with everything I've had going on. And stay safe out there this week, and we will be back next week, guys. Take care.
Hang on, Kristen. I have an announcement to make.
Okay.
I got this information through reliable sources, namely our Secretary of our state. If you want to walk with a delegate, your delegate at large, who's usually your state president, should allow you to walk with the delegate of your choice. You do not have to tell them which delegate you want to walk to. Just make sure they're informed that you are wanting to walk with a delegate during caucus. They are supposed to allow you to walk with a delegate. Now that means you have to walk with the delegate. You can't go up and say, I want to walk with the delegate, and then go off and get Subway or McDonald's or whatever. You have to actually actively participate by walking with that delegate.
Yes, you will have to be seen by your delegate at large in whatever caucus room that your state is in. But yes, You do have to get permission. I know some of us are still looking for walkers, so if you're interested, please let us know. I do have t-shirts that will be coming out. I have a limited supply, but for those that do volunteer to walk with me, I will make sure that I put those aside for you specifically if you wish to have one. And yes, so please reach out. I know we've had several that says they want to help any which way they can, so we will be contacting those accordingly as it goes. Go ahead, James. Anything else?
Yes, and if they do not allow you to walk, that is actually a violation of the Department of Labor or the National Labor Relations Act in terms of elections. So that would have to actually go to the board, to the floor of the convention if they actually violate that. And they could actually be held liable for doing so. So just take that with whatever grain of salt you want to take, but you should be able to tell your delegate at large you're walking with candidate, and they should allow you to do so. So just putting that out there as a final thing.
Thank you, James. We appreciate that. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I apologize. I made a mistake. I was saying delegate the whole time. It's with the candidate to walk with the candidate. So much stuff going on these past weeks with people having issues that my mind is going a million miles a minute.
And on that note, now we're wrapping it up for tonight, and we'll be back next week.
I'm having a baby!